In early October 2025, southeastern Spain and the Balearic Islands experienced one of the most devastating extreme weather episodes in recent years, when Hurricane Dana Alice, the first storm of the season to be officially named by the Spanish State Meteorological Agency, AEMET, stricken the regions of Murcia and Ibiza with surprising intensity. The name Alice was given as part of AEMET's new policy to raise public awareness of meteorological risks, and the storm quickly became a symbol of the increasingly visible climate challenges in the Mediterranean region. In less than 48 hours, the storm triggered torrential rains, flash floods, landslides, power outages, transportation disruptions, and mass evacuations, causing widespread damage to infrastructure and public life. In the region of Murcia, Hurricane Alice arrived at full force on the night of October 10th, bringing extreme rainfall exceeding 100 liters per square meter in areas such as the Mar Menor, Cartagena, and Vega del Segura. Small rivers overflowed, city drainage systems failed to cope, and major roads like the AP7 and CV 525 turned into impromptu rivers. Water entered homes, submerged vehicles, and forced hundreds of people to seek refuge in emergency evacuation centers set up by local authorities. Schools were closed, commuter train services were suspended, and airports in the Alicante and Murcia regions canceled dozens of flights. In Orihuela, a dam managed by the Júcar Hydrographic Confederation had to be opened to prevent structural damage from rising water pressure, while search and rescue teams were deployed to rescue residents trapped in flooded homes. Meanwhile, in Ibiza and Formentera, Hurricane Alice triggered a similar crisis. Emergency alerts were sent via mobile phone systems to the entire population, warning of potential flash floods and major disruptions to public services. Heavy rains lashed the islands for more than 12 hours, causing flooding in Ibiza's town center, minor landslides in hilly areas, and damage to power and communication networks. Ibiza Airport canceled more than 30 flights, and the port was temporarily closed due to high waves and strong winds. The tourism sector, the backbone of the local economy, suffered major disruptions, with tourists stranded in hotels and outdoor activities canceled. The Balearic Islands government activated regional emergency protocols, deploying EMU troops and firefighters to assist with evacuations and incident management. AEMET issued a red alert for the Murcia region and the southern coast of Alicante, signaling an extreme risk of heavy rain and flash flooding. An orange alert was also in place for coastal and inland areas of the province of Valencia and Vega del Segura in Murcia. In some cases, rainfall peaked at 40 liters per square meter in just 1 hour, creating extremely dangerous conditions for residents and infrastructure. Reports from local authorities indicate that at least 2 people died as a result of the storm, one in Murcia and one in Alicante, while dozens more suffered minor injuries and psychological trauma. The impact of Hurricane Alice was not only physical, but also social and psychological. Thousands of residents experienced disruptions to their daily lives, losing access to homes, jobs, and public services. Many suffered property damage, lost vehicles, and faced uncertainty about recovery. In Murcia, farming communities reported extensive damage to farmland and irrigation systems, while in Ibiza, small businesses in the tourism sector faced the threat of bankruptcy due to tour cancellations and damaged facilities. National and regional governments responded quickly, activating emergency protocols, allocating relief funds, and coordinating cross-regional efforts for logistics distribution and recovery. Search and rescue teams, the military, and volunteers worked around the clock to clear debris, restore power lines, and distribute food and clean water to affected residents. Spain's Minister of Transport visited Murcia and Ibiza to inspect the damage firsthand and promised imminent infrastructure repairs. At the local level, mayors and regional officials held daily press conferences to provide updates and reassure the public. However, Hurricane Alice also sparked a national debate about climate change preparedness and infrastructure resilience. Meteorologists and public policy experts called for investment in early warning systems, more efficient urban drainage, and public education about the risks of extreme weather. Several environmental organizations highlighted that rapid urbanization and development in flood-prone areas had exacerbated the storm's impacts, and called for a moratorium on development in vulnerable coastal areas. On the other hand, the scientific community emphasized that the Dana phenomenon, depression aislada en niveles altos, was becoming more frequent and intense due to global warming, and that storms like Alice were not anomalies, but rather part of a worrying trend. In post-disaster reflections, Spanish communities in Murcia and Ibiza demonstrated remarkable resilience and solidarity. Residents helped each other clean their homes, evacuate the elderly, and distribute aid. Local media highlighted heroic stories, such as a firefighter rescuing children from a flooded home and a doctor trekking through floodwaters to provide care to elderly patients. On social media, the hashtags Fuerza Murcia and Ibiza Resist have become symbols of hope and togetherness, with thousands sharing information, support, and donations. The storm is still active, and AEMET warns that heavy rainfall could continue in some areas for the next few days. The government continues to monitor developments and prepare long-term recovery measures, including infrastructure repairs, social assistance, and evaluations of urban drainage systems. In Murcia, plans to build new dikes and flood control systems are being accelerated, while in Ibiza, the regional government is considering revising its spatial plan to avoid development in flood-prone areas. Hurricane Dana Alice is a stark reminder of the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events in the Mediterranean region, which are affected by global climate change. Experts are calling for a holistic approach encompassing spatial planning policies, public education, weather monitoring technology, and international collaboration to increase disaster resilience. At the European level, the European Commission has expressed its readiness to provide financial and technical assistance to Spain and to encourage the integration of climate policy into regional development planning. With impacts extending from Murcia to Ibiza, this storm marks the beginning of a challenging autumn for Spain. Communities, governments, and the scientific community now face the daunting task of rebuilding, learning from this crisis, and strengthening protection systems against future disasters. Hurricane Alice's narrative is not just about destruction, but also about reflection, learning, and hope for a more resilient and sustainable future.